it's your boy Ancient Albatross here, and I'm here to tell y'all about the amazing upcoming VTT RPG stories. Do you ever feel like your online games are lacking interactivity and that visual pow that really engages and immerses you or your players? Tired of creating 3D terrains and maps with those hard-to-use apps? Need an easier way to create content for marketplaces? Then you need to get in on RPG stories. RPG Stories lets you fully immerse yourself and your players in any type of world you want. Fantasy, modern, sci-fi, RPG Stories does it all. And just look at the characters. These models and animations are fantastic. I can't imagine going back to regular VTTs after seeing my favorite characters moving around like this. And my gosh, look how easy it is to make detailed terrain and maps. Not only that, you can easily fill the world with quests and other details. One of the coolest things though, is that you can export everything you do within your game. 2D images, 3D models for 3D printing, and you can even export your entire game as a module. Everything exported this way belongs to you, and you can share, even sell these wonderful things you've created with RPG stories. So what are you waiting for? Hit that special Cypher Unlimited link down below to back RPG stories and let them know the CU Boys sent ya. And the Kickstarter is live until October 1st, so be sure to get in before it's over. And now, on to the show. Hey yo, it's your boy Ancient Albatross here again with the Cypher Unlimited crew. We have our usual suspects of AD or Alpha Dean. We have Spinks18 Anthony returning with us today. And just as a quick reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to follow us here on Twitch and subscribe to us over on YouTube. We are only 18 subscribers away from 1,000, so very close, so it's very appreciated if you subbed already, and if you were to sub, again, very appreciated. And Dean, what are we doing here tonight?
Man, well, before we jump right into this, there's just certain words that have to be said before I really get this thing going, because you got to think about it. Surrealistic, epic, phenomenal, enriching, evocative. These are the words that we would use, just a few of the words we would use when we talk about the design work of Bear Weiter. This man does phenomenal work for MCG games. Never have we got a product that did not take us over the edge or just push us to a place where we're sitting there going, oh my God. So, without further ado, we're going to welcome Bear here. I mean, you got to think about who Bear Weiter is for a real quick moment. This man has nearly 30 years and a wide range of experience in the production work, graphic design, interactive design, development, illustrations, animation, video production, and more than that, he even started his own company, Wombat Studios, tackling a variety of projects and clientele. His primary focus at that time was like 3D illustrations and animation, video production. The capabilities he's brought to MCG in various forms is just unfathomable. So in addition to art direction, he also handles nearly all their graphic designs, their layout, their products. He does 3D visualizations for each of their settings. He's actively involved with video needs as they come up. Now living in the suburbs of Kansas City with his wife and several cats and bookshelves full of games, books, and even some anthologies, several of which contain his own stories. Man, can we not welcome Bear Weiter? It's been too long since you've been hanging out with us, man. Welcome, Bear.
Wow, well, thank you. That was quite the welcome. I will probably have to make actually a small correction to that though. Back in spring, we added Javier. He is now working with me. We kind of make up the production team as far as all of the graphic design and layout. And now Javier is actually handling virtually all of the layout. He's doing a lot of the graphic design. If anybody's seen like the really awesome 10th anniversary T-shirts that we had out this year, like at Gen Con and all that, he did all of that illustration work. He does some illustration work for us, graphic design. So it's kind of an evolving role here. It's really exciting. Yeah, that's his work. He it's something that it really is a nice. What he brings to the table is a really nice complement to what I do. There's a lot of overlap and there's a lot of unique skills that we each possess. And so I think it's, you really start seeing that kind of come to fruition over the next year or so as we really kind of work all these things out and really allow each of us to really even kind of excel further. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Well, that means we're gonna have to have Javier on the
Yeah.
show. And I mean,
You know what's funny? It's funny you said that because literally today I sent out an email to Javier about coming on the show.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, he's a great guy. I think he'd love it. He really fits well as part of the team. This year we grew and added a couple of people this spring. So it's not just Javier, but also Dominique. They join us as a designer, and they're doing great work as well, fitting in really well. So we grow in spurts. This year we had a spurt, and it's a nice one. So
Dominic is awesome.
they're awesome.
And I got to say though, Bear, I mean, it just makes us feel good. Anybody they're going to bring in to give you some help to do what you already do, they got to be good at what they do. So,
yeah.
I mean, just looking at what you guys have laid out so far, just the preview of the Weird alone is mind blowing.
Yeah, that's going to be a great product. Javier's been working with us now. I mean, so he joined us full time back in May, end of April, beginning of May. But he's been doing work with me over the past year, 2 years, more so. But having him here full time is going to be a big change. And I know you guys are going to be at GameholeCon this year. You'll be able to get to meet him there. He will also be at GameholeCon. So yeah.
So let's get this show on the road. First off, I'm happy to be back as well.
Welcome back, Ed.
I was at a wedding, and I'm happy, and I'm sad that I missed Bruce, but I'm excited to have Bear. I told Bear off the air, it's been 3 years since Bear's been on our show, so we have a lot of ground to cover. It's I can't believe it's been that long. When I was going back to show notes, I was like, man, some of these questions are really old and dated.
Yeah, it's too long. I mean, I'm always happy to come on your show. I love you guys, and everything you guys do is awesome. So
yeah. So before we even jump right into the latest, project of Weird, it's been so long since we got to chat with you. You've been the art director for so many fantastic projects for MCG since then. I'm just gonna run down a couple. Discovery and Destiny, Stealing Stories for the Devil, The Darkest House, Toeless, Path of the Planebreaker, Claim the Sky, First Responders, Stay Alive, Godforsaken, We All Mad Here. That's just a fraction of the stuff you guys have produced in the last 3 years. They all have very different looks and have their own aesthetics. Do you have a personal favorite project that you worked on recently?
It's often, I'm sure anybody who does anything creative kind of has this experience that often the thing that you've worked on most recently is probably the most memorable for you just because it's so fresh and you really, really love what you do. Although there's also this kind of weird place where you love it and then you probably hate it. Although usually the hating is maybe when you're working on it at certain points and then you come back to love it or appreciate it. I certainly have that with like any kind of personal creative work that I do, but I might single out The Darkest House only because first off, it was a completely different product for us. So there's some technical aspects that I thought were really cool that we were able to kind of work out. We're a small team. We're not, no one here is an app developer. And so, but we were still able to make something that was quite a bit outside of our wheelhouse. And I think it was successful. And I really loved the look. I really loved the whole idea. It's very much my jam, horror and this and the dark and things like that. And then, of course, we were really lucky to be able to make the book and have that come out this year. It was not something that was looking good. It was kind of, it wasn't something that was necessarily planned for a long time. And we were able to kind of find a spot with our printer to be able to make it happen. We rushed to make it work and it worked. And so it's great. But I might be a little partial right now to Stealing Stories only because it was such a labor of love. We're having difficulties with the timing of it because of all of the COVID lockdowns this spring and shipping of the things and all that. But we are so close. I had to make sure I had it close by. We are so close to actually having this in people's hands. I know people have, if you've backed it, you have the PDFs, or you should be able to go and download the PDFs. But, we actually received production versions. These are for us to review to make sure that the manufacturer has all the last feedback and all that. There was a little bit of feedback, but it's
share that box again.
Sure.
Yeah, because you're gonna get a couple of people salivating on the Discord when
Yep.
they see.
Now this is the deluxe edition, right? So this is the big one. You can see pulling over the other one here. This is the standard box, and it is big and beautiful, and it's it's nice and weighty. There's 3 big books, but you can see the difference here. It's quite a bit of a difference there, and it's I love how it turned out. I love the opportunity to do something quite a bit different than what we've done visually otherwise. I think those 2 products are probably the things I'm most excited about in the past 6 months or so.
Anybody that knows MCG knows that your guys put a hell of a box set together. And anybody that's seen the Invisible Sun have gotten to open it and play around it. So I'm just getting those Invisible Sun flashbacks.
Yeah.
Cube looking at that deluxe edition.
Yeah.
Making me antsy.
Yeah. It's heavier than I was expecting, but it's no Invisible Sun, certainly.
Yeah.
It's definitely super cool to see it like physical, like, oh my gosh, it's almost here.
Yeah, right.
I know a lot of people are like clamoring for it.
Yeah. What's interesting is, so as part of the production cycle, we will get white samples. There's no printing, but it is it's the box or boxes in this case at the right size. It includes all of the books bound, but they're all completely white and blank. It has all of the individual pages and sheets, so I can make sure that the paper stock is right, the paper count is right, all of those kinds of things. And so it gives you this tangible sense of this product coming, but then you have to wait. And these are, I think I had the white samples of this back in April. No, it couldn't have been April. It must have been more like May or so. But anyway, so I've had that, and it's a great look at the product to come. But it's nothing like actually having the real printed thing. There's a foil stamp on the cover of the deluxe that looks really nice. It's subtle, but I like that subtleness, that it doesn't just immediately scream at you, and it's just there and it's beautiful. And yeah, I'm real excited about it.
It looked like it had some sort of gloss and matte finish.
Yeah, so there's I like doing gloss plates where there's some gloss and some matte. Some products we do things where there's like almost no gloss at all. It's just like a little hint of something. In this case, there's gloss plate, there's a foil plate. The foil works really well. It's a nice red that matches up with the red that's been printed with it. It's pretty sexy.
Yeah, it popped. When you held it up, it popped real quick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It looks great.
Yeah, I love when you guys use that mix of matte and gloss to make certain features pop or whatever have you. It's a lovely touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, but moving along a little bit here, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but can you tell us, for people who it's been a while since you've been here, what's it like being an art director for MCG? What is a typical day in the life of Bear at the office?
So pre-Javier, we were talking earlier before the show started how everything anymore is like defined by pre-COVID and post-COVID. At MCG, for me in my role, it's very much a pre-Javier and post-Javier kind of thing. So pre-Javier, it was essentially, everything passed through me. At this stage, though, it has certainly changed quite a bit. I'm responsible for all of the graphic design that comes through, but there's a lot of the graphic design that now happens in Javier's hands, or will certainly build up more so like that. He's still kind of working on products that I had designed ahead of time. Path of the Plane Breaker. He's currently working on the Planar Bestiary. But for me specifically, more and more it is dealing with the artists, working with them directly. It has always been that, but I can spend more time on those processes, making sure that I'm attentive to their needs, getting them what they need. But there's a lot of communications. Half those communications are with production cycles. We have things that are related to Old Gods of Appalachia that we are still working on. Things like we're making a tin, a cookie tin kind of thing as part of that. And so working with manufacturer on getting those going. We are making a plushie, which is completely out of our wheelhouse again. That's something that Tammy has headed up for the most part, but I'm kind of getting involved in these later stages. And so there's communications with that manufacturer. That one happens to be the same one who makes the tin, also makes the plushie. I deal with the manufacturers for doing things like our medallions, our coins, and we have a couple different cycles going with that through campaign coins for the planar tokens from Planebreaker, plus the Old God script coins that we are working on. There's dice manufacturers, because of course we are doing dice, and the Planebreaker dice should be hitting our warehouse very, very soon. And we have Old Gods dice that are also in production. So there's a lot of communications happening. But with the artists, it's I need to make sure that they're hitting deadlines that we need. Me making sure that I can accommodate their needs. There are times where, of course, something happens and they need more time or whatever. So I make sure that I can communicate with them and keep those things rolling. I want to make sure that art's coming in, or feedback is going back out. I facilitate all of those things. And then, of course, on top of that, there is a lot of design work. I was going to say Kickstarters, but of course, our latest thing is not a Kickstarter; it's Backer Kit. But there's a lot of design work around those events. Old Gods was a big one. With that was a very large project to do all that design work. But there's always small things that also need to be designed or need attention as part of these production cycles. So, and then of course I share a lot of memes at work. So that's kind of an important part of my job. I don't know if my coworkers appreciate the amount of effort that I put in to the curation and sharing of these memes, but it's important work.
You could always add us to the meme list, because I know all three of us are big meme fans. So if you want some appreciation for your memes,
there we go.
Definitely just send them to the CU.
There you go.
Before you ask your question, I just thought of this, and it wasn't part of our initial questions. But Tidal Blades, did you also do the art direction for that? Because I thought it wasn't a full MCG product.
It's a great question. It's an interesting answer. Yes and no. Yes, in that I was there in the role of art director, and art direction really is probably at least half being really just a facilitator, an organizer, and kind of keeping things orderly and structured and making sure things are happening. And so in that case, that role I was certainly involved with. The Tidal Blades world, it comes from the minds of Mr. Cuddington, which is a couple. I believe they were on your show at one point, David and Lena. They're super nice. What a great couple. But they are the artists for it, right? And they do all the artwork. And so there wasn't really need of me injecting myself into that process. They knew what they needed to create. Shauna did all of the writing of it and additional world building and everything else for the book version. She wrote up additional art needs And I was there to kind of just be that middle person to make sure that what she needed and what was requested as part of the book was produced and then put into the book where we wanted it. So I did the graphic design on it, but a lot of that graphic design is essentially stealing what they've kind of done in some of their other things, or at least being heavily inspired by other things that they've done. So it's not, I wasn't really starting from scratch. I had a lot of good sources and, made use of those to pull the book together. I did do all the layout of the book and all those things. And
That book is also, and still to
Before
this
we go-
day- Okay, Dean.
I was just saying, before we go any further, before I ask my question, just let everybody know, Jason, we did see your question. We're just gonna collect all the questions and we'll ask Bear the questions from the audience at the end. So anybody who has any questions, go ahead and put them up and we'll collate them and get to them.
And also preface it by the word question, so Al knows that it's a question, and so he could cut and paste it on our form for later. First of all, we're gonna say this. Your early layout work is we still talk about the layout from Unmasked, like every other one of our videos.
Unmasked, that was mostly done by Zoa.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
Zoa. So Zoa was our first intern. She happened to be here in Kansas City. She was at the Art Institute here in KC, and she joined us as an intern. After her internship, she did some part-time work with us. Ultimately, she ended up coming on full-time for a little while. I think that was one of her big projects was Unmasked. I mean, I was there again with her to make sure it was done with what we wanted it to be and everything else. But it was I believe at the time, it was probably one that may not have fallen into our hands in different circumstances, but it was happening at the same time that Invisible Sun was. And of course, Invisible Sun was our kind of biggest beast to date at that time. It certainly had the biggest pieces and parts and everything else. And so I was so loaded with involvement with Invisible Sun that I probably pushed more of that onto her than I would have otherwise at the time. And but she delivered. She did great. I probably made her nervous by doing so, but she did great. She delivered. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
for some
that's one of
reason,
the-
that and Stay Alive, just the layout just stands
Yeah.
out. So
Yeah,
much.
they're awesome books.
yeah. As I said, I love horror. It's kind of my I love fantasy. I love sci-fi. I love horror. But when it comes down to it, horror is still probably my it's the thing that maybe gets me the most excited. And so, yeah, I loved working on Stay Alive. Sometimes when I do design work, it's all, you start on the computer and everything's done on the computer. And Stay Alive started in my basement with some pieces of paper and some ink so I could make some blood drips and things like that. Because I kind of felt like it needed something, a lot of our Cypher system books, we have the call out column, the outside edges, and we often do something tied to the corners. And so I kind of wanted some consistency with other books, but yet still be its own thing. And so I had this idea and went down with a straw and some paintbrushes and India ink and just made a big old mess of ink. And that kind of started the basis as my background and design elements for that book.
Wow, sounds awesome. So my next question is, you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but you said, not only you worked on some of our favorite books of all times, but you had the chance to direct for The Darkest House, which was originally produced as a digital product only. So how was that process different from working on a normal book? And, did you learn anything unique from the experience?
I'm sure I did. It's not coming to me. I think there was, so art directions is a lot of organization. It's a lot of, it's spreadsheets and communicating and then checking things off and all of that. This one was more spreadsheet heavy because it wasn't just that they are pieces of art that are ultimately just going to be thrown into a folder and then you go into a folder and you grab it and you lay out the book. This one was very, very much of an organizational beast that needed to be wrangled. And so I was involved in that process. I wasn't alone. I luckily had other people helping out. I know our managing editor, Terry, helped out quite a bit in that process. Shauna was involved quite a bit in that process. But there's a lot of management just of all the assets, and it wasn't just assets, but different versions of the assets. Like we had, versions that are app only, versions that are download only. There are some things that change depending on if you've investigated a certain room. So of course you have to have 2 different versions of certain things. Certainly some of the maps, if you're showing a map to some of your players, you don't want to show them the one that has the secret door until they discover the secret door. And so there's some asset management with that. But one of my favorite parts actually with the Darkest House was doing some of the sound work for it. You're reading off my list of all the things that I've done, and I've always been kind of a jack of all trades kind of person, and I think I excel at that versus I'm never going to be the best graphic designer, I'm never going to be the best art director, I'm not going to be the best this or that, but I can be pretty good at a lot of things, and I can really enjoy doing a lot of different things. And so I've done sound work before, but I think this one allowed me to kind of really push doing stuff that felt more atmospheric and more involved and more connected. So there's like some sound clips where there's some phone calls where there's a little girl calling you on the phone. And I loved working on these things. Or if you had the Devouring Halls, the expanded version of the Darkest House, there's some clips in there where you hear someone on the other side of a wall pounding on a wall. And so I got to record those pounds. I was knocking on my some walls in my basement and recorded those. Monte did the voice work. And so I could make, I did some sound magic, some suppression and noise gating to make it sound like he's actually on the other side of the wall. And I really enjoyed those aspects in particular. I love doing the artwork or doing work with the artist on the artwork, doing the graphic design and everything else. But I think the sound work of it was something that got me the most excited.
That just sounds fun too.
Yeah.
I know it's work and it can be complicated, but
Yeah.
just figuring out sounds and banging on walls, it sounds fun.
No. Yeah. It actually kind of inspired me. It's just a really quick aside. I'm not trying to plug anything here because we don't have anything out yet, but a couple of friends and I started talking this spring about doing a podcast. So it's a horror sci-fi story-based podcast. And so it was actually my idea. It was their writing, something they did long ago. But I came to them and said, hey, we should turn this into a podcast. Obviously, there's some inspiration because we were working with Old Gods, and I've been really getting into those podcast episodes, and of course, others and listening to it. But between that and then working on the stuff for the Darkest House, I thought, this would be really fun to do. I think it would be an enjoyable side project and such. And so we did some tests and really had a good time. And so, we're now producing these episodes. We're trying to make it fairly immersive and allows me to kind of explore this further, the sense of it really being acted out as opposed to just like an advanced audio book or whatever. So it's pretty exciting. But I'll be talking more about that when we actually get to be kind of nearer releasing and also.
Now you're gonna have to bring the cast on the show once you release it.
I probably shouldn't spoil it too much. Right now, there is a handful of different voices, but there's really only a cast primarily of one. So I'll talk more about it when we get to it, and I can really show it off. It's pretty. It's kind of different.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I know you've heard this question a lot because I've actually been with you at cons where I've heard people ask you this question, but since we're on air, I have to ask it. Right?
Yeah.
You know, Monica Games products are known for having such a wide variety of original artwork. Where do you find your artists from?
You know, at this point, it's kind of an organic process. Beforehand, so when I started here, I've been here for over 8 years now. Company's 10 years old. So, you know, that first year they kickstarted Numenera. And then by the time they're coming out with Numenera, they started kickstarting The Strange. And by the time I joined is when we were starting to deliver The Strange. Excuse me. So by that point, we already had a pretty good established base of artists to be picking from. But from there, you know, I started adding artists probably from a few different sources. One, we have a form on the website. So if any artists are listening here and you want to reach out to me, we do have a form on the website called the Professional Inquiry form. You fill it out, it comes to me. More likely than not, it probably doesn't get looked at very often because I just I get a lot of those, and I'm going to be trying to get better at going through those. But what's better, of course, is to email me directly, and that is bear@montecookgames.com. So if you have a portfolio you want me to look at, just email me directly, and that will that at least helps rise a little closer to the top. Because I end up friending up a lot of artists on Facebook. I do Twitter, but Twitter's mostly there as kind of a retweet kind of platform for me. I don't really do a whole lot there. Facebook's more my thing, and so I'm connected with a whole bunch of artists, and because of that, you know, you become more connected with other artists, and so people will hit me up there, or I see their artwork and say, yeah, I got to be working with these people or whatever. And you know, for Stealing Stories, I was kind of in the mode of really trying to find some new artists and people that we've never worked with before. And, you know, some of those artists now I'm still working with. Some I would love to continue working with if it's the right project. But you know, The Darkest House, I think, brought in a few new artists for us. And it's always just kind of comes in spurts based upon need, and I'm trying to be better at just being a little bit more open to just bringing more artists on, even if I don't have the immediate need, just to broaden the pool and allow me to kind of think through things a little better as we're getting closer to projects. You know, I'm only looking at the project maybe a month or two ahead of like maybe 2 to 3 months ahead of like when we're getting into that kind of the crowdfunding, kickstarting part of it as far as art and all that. And we're getting better at looking further and further ahead on those. And so, you know, there are things where we start talking about, you know, 6 months down the road now, and that's awesome. It's a good place to be in. So.
Yeah,
That's actually a great lead-in for your question now.
yeah, it's definitely perfect lead in. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the Weird in regards to art and whatnot. So the Weird definitely has an original look and style to it. Where did you guys get the inspiration for this art style, and can you name some of the artists that worked on the free download? Because we were actually curious about that as we were looking through it.
Yeah, so most things within the company, when it comes to things like that, I have to give props to Monte. Monte is the creative director for the company. It's likely that he actually looks at more art than I do on average. He is so visually oriented for his work and inspiration, and he's always putting together like additional Pinterest pages and other kinds of stuff. And so he looks at a lot of art. So in this case, you know, he had some ideas of what we were looking for, because the weird is kind of organized into like a kind of almost a gradient of weirdness. And so we were kind of thinking that with some of the art too, that not everything could be at what we call the gonzo level. But we have some gonzo art in there. but in this case, I think it's almost all artists that I'd already worked with before, in different ways. For these kinds of projects, I'd like to try to give them as much freedom as possible. So in these cases, we have some samples of what we're looking for, what's exciting us, color palettes that excite us, some things that are kind of interesting dichotomies in materials and treatments of art, not everything being fully rendered like a lot of artists would do, but kind of maybe a mix of styles and things like that. And so we put together essentially kind of like inspiration boards or reference materials. And so that's kind of what we did for this to help inspire them. But a lot of it is leaving it to the artist and kind of trusting that they're going to grok what we're getting and wanting. And, it's nice working with artists who can take some grains of ideas and look at what we're showing them and really running with it. So, and that's the case. Offhand, because I would hate to get miss an important person on credits. You asked about naming some of the artists. I'm just going to pull up the PDF. It's cheating, but you know what? Sometimes you just have to cheat. So,
who did the lettering for the weird?
The lettering. As far as the logo?
Yeah,
So the logo is done by an artist named Lee Smith. Lee has been with us for a lot longer than I have. He did the original Numenera character sheets and all of the subsequent Numenera character sheets. He actually did the character sheets for The Strange as well. He did a lot of border work for me for Invisible Sun and so many other products. He did the bordering work for Path of the Planebreaker. Lee is one, he's done art for us too, and I really love his art. But he has such a certain look to his drawing style that I turn to him again and again for these kinds of design elements, these design bits and things. And I thought that would be really fitting for the logo. I did some preliminary sketches. If we wanted something that was going to be more polished, I guess, cleaner edges and things like that, it would have stayed with me. Hop into Illustrator, do a lot of stuff, maybe some 3D things here or there, like I did with Planebreaker. But we didn't really want that for this. When Monte first introduced the weird, my mind went to kind of this this kind of 70s vibe, Yes logo kind of vibe, that Roger Dean kind of art and things like that. But we didn't want it to be retro specifically. I just wanted elements of that and the vibe of that. And so, but we took it to Lee Smith. He did the logo design. He polished it up from kind of some forms that I was kind of thinking. And then ultimately what you see on the weird book cover, that then was essentially redone by another artist, the artist who did the cover, Roberto Perturo. Roberto is someone that we have counted on time and time again. He's not our only cover artist, but he's kind of one of our primary cover artists. And so he did the cover for The Weird, and it's an awesome, awesome cover. We ultimately, I think, showed him, I believe it was the poster for, what's the movie? Anyway, we showed him a movie poster, and then he just he took it and ran with it, really delivered. But as part of that, he really integrated the logo. I was hoping that the logo would be integrated as part of it, so he kind of reworked it and integrated it really nicely. And yeah, he also did some of the additional other artwork for us. He did the thing. There's a piece where it's someone who's kind of in a moon boat going across the water. He did that piece of art. He's done a lot of really nice work for us. He did no one outside of the company, except for I think one person, well, and two people counting him as the artist, have ever seen the full image of the chapter openers inside of Invisible Sun. So if you're familiar with Invisible Sun, there's images, there's pieces of like a party scene with different characters. If you're really attentive, you might notice that they aren't always the same. And I know, of course, there's the secrets channel on Cypher Unlimited's Discord. So if you check that out, you might be able to find some more information and some more thinking about it. But anyway, Roberto did that piece of art, and it's probably my favorite piece that has been done for the company. It's big and beautiful and complex, and it's one of those things that I would love to show it off at some point, but it still kind of remains one of our secrets of how it was done and how it all kind of works. So,
you know, the weird cover, the letter, it personally reminds me. It's funny that you said 70s because it reminds me of Von Baudet, you know, Cheech the Wizard, like the early graffiti.
Yeah.
It gives me that, you know, 1970s graffiti vibe, and I'm a huge fan of like early street art.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
especially the lettering.
Yeah.
It definitely reminds me of Cheech the Wizard and, you know, all that great art that came out of the 70s.
Yeah, I could see that.
Modern day graffiti.
Yeah. The inspirational piece that we sent was a poster for Everything Everywhere All at Once. That movie was awesome and wild and weird, and it kind of helped kind of encapsulate the sensibilities of, I think, that Monte has with this product. And so, yeah. Sorry, Dean, I interrupted you.
Oh, no, I was just saying, you know, they were like all on the same kind of sheet of music when you're talking about it, because I just get those. For me, the visual experience always kind of, for me, takes me to pieces of music. And we had said it on our previous stream, you know, I was getting Jimi Hendrix, Purple Haze.
Yeah.
You know, I was, you know, in that mode because I'm one of those people, you know, words, pictures, and music all can connect for me. That's right. Kind of my artistic weirdness. But it's just great because it is evocative, and it does put you in that place to think about, you know, more, which is awesome.
Yeah, so Roberto, just to kind of toot his horn just a little bit more, he's done our white book covers, so things like God Forsaken and We're All Mad Here, Stay Alive, The Stars Are Fire, all of those. He's done those covers for us. He's done the latest Cypher System. Actually, he did the original Cypher System rule book cover as well. He's been around with us for a long time, and you know he's someone that I can kind of throw a lot of different things at, and he just delivers. He's just really amazing.
Those silhouette covers are phenomenal.
First of all, if you watch any of our videos, you know we geek out about that whole line. You know, the whole line of books. Those covers are awesome.
Yeah,
I'm still looking to find the right frames so I can put my prints in frames, but they're still like, you know, secure in their little folders. I don't want them to get messed up.
You know, I think we also if you're ever missing any of those, I believe I've thrown some of that artwork up also on like Society 6. So if there's ever something where you'd want, boy, I wish I had this, but it was smaller or bigger or whatever else, I think we have those pieces of art sitting on Society 6, or it might be Redbubble, which I think is now another company. But you know, and if there's ever something that I don't say this to all fans, don't just email me and say, hey, give me this piece of art, that piece of art. But if you guys ever have an idea and say, you know, this would really make a great poster if you guys could put this up on Society 6, let me know. I can think about it and see if that's something that might make sense. So
you know what else is beautiful about that whole line of, you know, those 3 books? When you sit them side by side in the binder, they look like they meant to be together. Like even the bindings are freaking awesome. When you have Stay Alive, like just connected to each other. Yeah,
it would be nice though if you guys threw that claim the sky silhouette up. You know, just throwing it out there. You know,
Yep. If it's not on Society 6, I can get that one up there. What I really like about them is the art that without the mask. So all the white parts are it's essentially a layer on top of the artwork. And so, you know, Roberto does a lot of work to make sure that what you're seeing once it's masked is beautiful. I think we are all mad here, I think might be my favorite of his, just the way the trees work in conjunction with the silhouette of essentially the evil stepmother or queen or whatever she is. But you strip away those masks and the art is just as beautiful and evocative. And I think I've tried making those available in both ways, but if not, it's something I should probably revisit at some point.
Oh, I don't think I've ever seen the artwork without the layer on top of it.
yeah.
Yeah. No, we should correct that.
Oh, all right. We're all for it.
Okay.
So like with all your MCG projects, you guys hit stretch goal after stretch goal after stretch goal. You know, you offer gaming aids, accessories, and so on and so forth. You know, this project is no different. You know, you have the weird deck, the site deck, miniatures, sets of dice. Are you part of these designing of these items as well? And is the process any different from working on traditional books?
Yeah, so it's you know, one of my roles is doing these. Well, again, I can't call them Kickstarters anymore. Everything had always been a Kickstarter, right? And now we've now done this Packer Kit project. Our crowdfunding events are whatever they're called now, Kickstarters. That's good enough. You know, it's my role to visualize as much of the products as possible to convey the intent of where we're going to go with it. Some of the work that I do for visualizing these things is near final. Certainly the book covers, whenever possible, we are using final art. Sometimes that does not happen. Sometimes we realize, hey, we need another book. I didn't have a chance to order the art, so we use something as placeholder temporarily. But you know, that's rare. Most of the time we have good art to be using art that we wanted and intended for these books. So I can do that design work. There may be some tweaks, of course, by the time we get to the books. Bylines change, some other things like that. Card decks, I like to design as much as I can with the card decks, just because I think it shows well by the time, you know, once it hits the Kickstarter page or the campaign page, that you can see what these things look like. Same thing with the dice. Though we've been working recently with a different dice manufacturer where for like the premium dice we're doing for Planebreaker or for Old Gods, it's a little beyond my ability, or maybe beyond my time anyway, to try to actually render those things in 3D. It would take a lot of work for me to get those materials to look right. So in those cases, we'll take photos from the manufacturer and then I will mock up on top of those. But yeah, I try to do as much of that design work as possible and hopefully do it well enough that by the time we start working on it as an actual product, sometimes it's only you know, a very short time after the Kickstarter or campaign. Sometimes it can be months or maybe even a year afterwards. But I'd like to know that I've at least put a good first effort into it, because it's more inspiring for me to sit down and start working with it. And sometimes it's like, wow, this was actually really good, and I just need to make some tweaks. Sometimes it's like, wow, I don't know what I was thinking, and I need to reinvent this, or that the product has evolved enough that it now needs a complete fresh effort or whatever. But yeah, I like designing those things. It's fun. The dice that we're doing for the Weird, they're funky dice. They're silicone. They're bouncy.
Yeah, have you bounced them yet? Because I've never had silicone dice, and I saw the ad.
Yeah, Charles has one, and you know, he's the one who shot the video of the thing bouncing around and all that. I did an animation of one bouncing, but it wasn't really quite right, and he has the real thing. It's better just to show the video of it anyway. So, but I think those are going to be really fun. They're definitely weird, you know. And so it fits the campaign, and they're not so. It's not like a Super Ball bounciness where you start rolling it and it's going to go everywhere. You know, it's still going to stay where it's at, and it's probably nicer for your table than throwing hard plastic at it. So, you know.
Yeah, I have a set of those silicone dice that already, and they are pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's my bucket list for my one purchase for
yeah.
Evo card. I'm gonna buy a set.
You know, you said the perfect word. You know, Bear, is just kind of great. We're having this conversation. You know, we brought up the 70s. Anthony brought up, you know, street art and graffiti and so on and so forth. You know, and then you go and use the word funky. You know, it's like, yeah, let's take it to Funky Town. It's like everything. You know, this is like perfect for this what we're talking about. You know, because there's like, you know, I just wanted to say that much. I think, you know, you've done a beautiful job already in just evoking so many different aspects. You know, we talk about the psychedelic tropes and so on and so forth, but I also get those old pulp era feelings.
Yeah.
You know, it's just pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. What's nice is again that you know, a lot of these projects, you know, we have certain projects where it's iterative, right? We introduce some new Numenera products, and so of course, I generally lean more toward having a certain level of consistency kind of throughout. I mean, you can see an evolution, say, from the original Numenera book to where we're at currently, and I'm sure the Glimmering Valley, which is one of the books offered as part of this crowdfunding campaign right now, Backer Kit. The Glimmering Valley is a Numenera book. I assume it's going to evolve further to kind of help continue pushing the Numenera line visually and all of those kinds of things. But, you know, at the heart of it, it's still a Numenera book. And so it's, you know, we kind of have certain set looks and things like that. So it's nice when we have things like the weird, because it's just it's such a left turn for us. We had that with The Darkest House. Certainly Stealing Stories was such a departure from what we've done. Old Gods is going to be that as well. And so it gives us a lot of opportunities to do some new stuff and keep things fresh. And, you know, and again, kind of giving props to Monte. I think he really has a good finger on the pulse of things that are emerging, coming up as far as hotness. And it's not so much that I think he's like, okay, what's gonna be the next hot thing? Because we have to go there, as much as this is what's inspiring me. This is what I love to do. This is what I see is kind of maybe kind of coming and all of that. And he's good navigating those things and helping to align us in those ways to remain forward thinking. So
I think Monte makes the next hot thing as opposed to
probably so. Yeah.
I mean,
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, you've been leading us perfectly into our next questions, because our very next question is, not only do you have the weird, but you also have an additional Numenera book, The Glimmering Valley. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that project?
Sure. You know, I don't have a whole lot more to say than what, say, like the campaign page has as far as what the book is about. It's, you know, it's a full campaign book. You know, we do a variety of things. We have certainly adventure focused books where you get a variety of adventures in a book. We have some campaign books like Jade Colossus. But you know, it's time to do another campaign book. And this fits well for this campaign and for this year. It's our 10th anniversary. The company was started off of Numenera. You know, we haven't done Numenera stuff since was the Liminal Shores campaign, and so it was time to do another you know, another Numenera product. Numenera is kind of our original weirdness. It allows us to do so many different kinds of things and play within so many different genres, but I'll still bring it back into Numenera. And so I don't have much more to say besides that. I think it's going to be a great product. But this is one that this has a new cover artist for us. I don't actually. I make it almost sound like we have cover artists and we have regular artists, and it doesn't really work out like that. We have artists, some of which I trust or feel like they are fitting for doing covers for what this book might be or not. But this is an artist I've been working with for about a year or so. I really like the stuff that he's doing for us, and I thought let's try him out for a cover. And I think he did a great job on this cover. It's very Numenera-ish. It fits with the world of Numenera. So it's all exciting to me.
Yeah, the cover is
and we probably since I think Discovery and Destiny, those sets, I've been doing kind of this funky header thing where originally the Numenera logo, well, the Numenera logo itself hasn't changed, and it has what we call these feathers on the end. They aren't feathers, but Kieran Yanner did that work, and he did a beautiful job. Then for Discovery and Destiny and Sense, I've done this framework around the logo for the book covers, and I thought it was just time to. It's our 10th anniversary. We haven't done a Numenera book for a little while. It's time to kind of change that up. So I really enjoyed changing up that logo frame and kind of setting up this next look. We'll see how far I kind of take that. But right now I'm digging that look. And so, yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome to see all the stuff coming out right now with this project. Is the fact that you paired the weird and Glimmering Valley. It's because Numenera is fit for the weird. Like they go hand in hand. Yeah. Which leads perfectly into the next question here. Numenera, again, always been known to have a heavy dose of weirdness in it. So Glimmering Valley, perfect pairing. Have you guys started playtesting any of the ideas, either solo or together?
I don't know. So the design team, and just a really quick sidebar, when I say design team, I'm talking about the writers, the game designers. I made a joke probably about a month ago at our weekly all hands meeting that maybe it was a couple of months ago, because we have a new intern. She joined us probably back later May. But anyway, so when we talk design or design team, we're talking game design, as opposed to, in my world, if I'm saying design, I'm typically talking graphic design. So, but in this case, design is the game designers. They meet, they have a weekly meeting as well. They will often do play tests as part of their meetings. I do not know if they've play tested any of these ideas and these things yet. I know it is a very actively being worked on project right now. Sometimes that is not the case. Sometimes when we are working, or when we are during a crowdfunding campaign, it is essentially kind of the next product to come. But enough work has been done for us to visualize and to know what it is and have a direction going forward. In this case, it's much more advanced. It is actively being worked on and developed. There is Monte is the lead. It is his baby, but there are other voices involved as well. And it's interesting to kind of see it developing, because we all meet on Slack, and that's kind of our platform for daily communications, for me to bombard them with my memes, all of those things. And so you see a lot of that stuff happening within Slack, which is really fun to see.
And I will say this, since you mentioned it being heavily actively worked on at the moment, I don't know if you watched our interview with Bruce, but he was literally taking notes about things we were saying for the weird as ideas to use in the weird. So yes, very actively being developed on.
Yes, right. And crowdsourced, quite literally crowdsourced.
Now I'm always, we very improv-y. So now in my mind, I'm thinking, what memes does Bear have, and can we make a game out of, like, 3?
most of my stuff, I'm not one who I'm not making the stuff. I'm not delving too deep into trying to find them, but there's a handful of people that I always kind of steal memes from. They're always weird and eclectic and just different, right? If it's weird, strange humor, it's probably gonna appeal to me. Anything that comes from obvious plant, the people who make the fake products with the fake descriptions on those, that's my jam. I love those things. There was a fake Marge doll that was packaged up that so I had to share that. Those things are great. Weird animal stuff is always a thing for me, and so not to try to peel too much of the curtain back, but anything that comes through that's frog based, it always goes into Tammy's channel. Anything that is duck or goose based, it goes into Sean's channel. So next time you guys have those people on, you can talk to them a little bit more about their love of frogs or their love of ducks. Sean may not actually love ducks, but he gets all the duck and goose.
I thought Sean was a crow guy. He loves crow.
He is actually a crow guy, yeah. So he would get crow memes as well, but duck and goose memes come through more often. So
Well, yeah, and you're a cat guy, so
Yeah.
I like the cats myself.
yeah,
I've become addicted to the skippity pap videos with the cats.
yeah, nice.
Oh man. All right, so
Dean, it's your turn.
yes, I know. I'm sleeping. So I'm waking up. Now, is there anything else you'd like to tell our audience about the weird or glimmering valley that we may not have mentioned? Is there some little tidbit to look forward to?
The only thing I would say is that, this is a shorter campaign for us. Normally we run these for about 30, 31 days. I think this is more like 24 days or something like that, maybe even less. It wraps up end of next week. So if you haven't checked it out yet, your time, we have a little bit more than a week to go. So definitely check it out. It is on BackerKit. It's different for us. But it's good to try something different. I think there's been a lot of positive things trying out BackerKit. They've been a good partner for us. So I know someone on there in the comments had something about not trusting BackerKit, and I don't get that. BackerKit, I mean, 90% of the Kickstarters that I ever backed still goes through BackerKit in the end. So they've been good to us. They've been a good partner for us, and so definitely check it out. But the last few campaigns, when we've kind of wrapped them up, we've often announced kind of that next thing to come. I'm not ultimately in control of that, so but there may be announcements at the end of this campaign of what's next. So it's always good to watch, right?
You did mention, Ben, that it's only 24 days. Was there a reason why that was? That it was a 30-day campaign. A 30-day
there's always logistics when we run these things. Trying to find the start date depends on a lot of factors, some of which are purely just, are we ready? Do I have my shit together? Excuse me. And do I have all of the art ready or everything visualized? Do we have the page built? A lot of that falls onto me getting, of course, getting all of the imagery together. And so sometimes that launch date is a little soft, but we almost always launch on a Tuesday. So if it's not looking good, we're probably going to move it off by a week, unless of course we've already announced it. But it's we want to start at a certain time. We start then. The end date is partially based on, in this particular case, is that when it's ending, it's early October. And about a week and a half later, if we waited another week, we're kind of ending just before we're heading off to Gamehole Con. And so that's kind of problematic time-wise. And so we knew we had certain caps to it all. Getting started early, there's limits with, say, things like Gen Con and all of the work that had gone into prepping for Gen Con. So there's always things and posts that we kind of have to work within and around and all of that. So
that's awesome. And with that being said, everybody, so you know, there are 9 days left in this particular Kickstarter. It's standing at $326,527, 3,319 backers. If you haven't jumped on there and backed this project yet, please do. You will not be disappointed. Matt, as we always tell you, Monte Cook Games gives you more bang for your buck, every single time. Bear, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been enlightening.
We're gonna take quick questions.
Yes, I know. I know. I
just want to say one other thing too, D. You read my freaking mind, dude, because I was just about to say the exact numbers for the backing kit. Awesome.
We're on the same sheet of music. So without further ado, we got a few questions from the audience, Bear. We're gonna ask you those.
Yeah,
and see what we got. Al, you want to give him the first one?
I'll go first.
Yeah, go for it.
You don't mind staying back to answer a couple of audience questions?
No.
Right there? All right. So the first one is from Jason C. Now, if I can find these audience questions.
Bruh.
Why is it? Okay. All right. I'm messing this whole thing up.
I got it right here if you don't got it.
Yeah, ask the first question, because for some reason...
He said, just read The Darkest House in print. The book is basically designed in dark mode. Did the use of light text on the dark background influence your font choice, since it would help to use a font with optical size?
Yeah, it's it was a different product for us. The Darkest House, of course, itself is a very dark app. It was intended to be dark. It's right there in the name. And the art itself, of course, we knew at the time that this was only ever going on screen, and so we were able to allow for a lot of darkness into what we were creating for the app. When it came to the book, we thought, well, let's go ahead and try to make a really dark book. It's always a production challenge. I think, I would say we were probably 95% successful. There would probably be some things in hindsight that I would have wanted to tweak a little further. But the font choice, I stuck with the font that we used for the original PDFs for the product. I wanted it to be consistent as far as type and how all that worked. But I do believe there's some of the type that we made a little fatter through stroking the type versus some type, very few fonts where you can get it in like a dozen different weights. This font, you get a bold or a normal font, and the normal font's really lightweight and the bold is not very bold. And so we played a little bit with that just to make sure, and of course made sure that the font size was as spacious as possible and as big as possible to make sure that it would be legible and it wouldn't we wouldn't have registration issues with it and all of that. But yeah, there certainly a lot of considerations went into it. A lot of work went into it. And as I said, I'm very happy with the product. I think in hindsight, maybe a little bit more on a few tweaks would have been good, but that's production.
I think it looks really cool.
Yeah.
It's also, I find it fascinating that so much work goes into, not only do I have the right font, now I have to tweak it to make it, like that's something that a normal consumer wouldn't even come across their mind to even think about.
Yeah, and this is one where I mentioned Javier a few times. This is one that the original app was my baby. I did all the design work and all of that. Although ultimately it still ended up being an HTML product, which meant that it went through our web guru Jeremy, who is not an outside contractor, but does, he's kind of one of our lifeblood, one of the people that we really count on for everything we do. And he was instrumental in making the app happen with another person. But for the book, it was predominantly Javier's baby. We had another outside designer help us out with it, Vihendro. She also helped us out with another product beforehand, but because a lot of it was happening kind of back when I was really heavy in still with Old Gods. But yeah, Javier did a great job. He did some really cool layouts with some of the rooms, and I couldn't be more happy with all that, with his work on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Grun Nadler asks, ever consider releasing a Art of Numenera tome or something similar? I still have my Art of Dragon magazine from all the
Yeah, those books are awesome. We have done an Art of Numenera. We did that as part of the Discovery and Destiny Kickstarter, and at certain levels you could get the art book. They were exclusive to that Kickstarter, so it's not something that we sell outside, but it would be nice if, over there, it would be nice if, we can always revisit that. There's always more and more art, and there could be better ways in which we, bigger versions. Originally we did an Art of Invisible Sun book, and then we did the Art of Numenera as part of it, but it wasn't as big as obviously it could have been, yeah, I'm always pro art books. I don't know how many I buy and just fill up my shelves with.
Yeah, they're definitely awesome to have, especially when you love the product, like, we are MCG products. So it's definitely awesome to, it would be awesome, I should say, to be able to buy like art books or bigger prints, like you were saying on Society 6 or whatever have you. That would definitely be awesome to be pushed out there more.
And it's great just to have something to be able to thumb through and just for inspiration purposes,
Yes.
I mean, you can do that with the books already, but sometimes you just want the art and you thumb through it and it's just there for you to kind of build the next game that you want to run, the next story or the next scenario or whatever it might be.
Exactly. And within this vein, our next audience question comes from El Terror. I always butcher pronouncing this name, but any chance we'll see a 10th anniversary MCG art book?
At this stage, I'm going to say no to that specifically. I mean, we have 3 months left of the year, and I know that's not something that is in the pipeline, but it would be interesting, I think, as a product as a whole. Maybe there is a future anniversary that would be celebrated nicely with that. Clearly, for the longest time, I was using a particular app to organize all of our art, and unfortunately, I'm predominantly Mac based. All of the Mac apps, everything is transitioned over to Apple Silicon, and everything needs to be 64-bit and blah blah blah. And so this app has kind of died off for me in its usage, but otherwise I could open it up and say, here's the how many thousands of pieces of art we have. I had it organized where I could tell you exactly how many Numenera pieces of art we had, or Cypher System, or The Strange, or Invisible Sun. I had it organized by artist and other kinds of things. So all of those things I still have running on another computer, but I don't maintain it because it's too much effort. But yeah, there's been a lot of art that we've certainly done at this point.
That sounds like a trove for sure.
Yeah.
I want to add a question, and I'm kicking myself because I haven't. This is the perfect question to ask Bear. Bear, what do you think of this? Had nothing to do with show notes, but just hearing you talk, man, what do you think about this whole craze of digital, the computer art?
AI art. Yeah.
AI art.
It is
Tough question, right?
No, it's not really. I think it's just a double-bladed sword, right? I've been really fascinated with it. I think you can do some really cool stuff. back in June, I think, May or June, I got hooked up with Midjourney, and so I was really playing with that. And it was, at least at the time, it was really awesome for making horror type art, because even when you're making fantasy art, it's all still kind of twisted and messed up in certain ways that I loved. It's a little graphic and gory, and and so I was doing a lot of stuff with like, I have a background in medical illustration and animation, and so I have a lot of medical illustration books and things, and but I like kind of the gory things, and so I was doing a lot of things with hearts and brains and bone and all these other things, kind of weird and twisted together. But it's come along since then. I mean, you can really do some things that are very convincing as far as faces and things like that. There's kind of the three biggies out there right now, and I have access to them, but I've kind of cooled on using them some, partially just from being too busy. But I'm excited with what you can do, and I'm also I think there's ethical questions related to how they are being used, and I think mostly around the data sets that they gobble up, and then allowing and not allowing people to not be gobbled up. It's just a monster that has eaten all of these images, and then it can spit it out. But then also allowing you to use those artists' names as part of your image generation, and I think that's pretty shitty. With Midjourney, very early on, I realized that there are certain things I could not actually include as part of the prompt. I couldn't include the word skin. Obviously, for them, they think it has pornographic potential, which I can certainly see, but I also kind of feel like, creating adult material is not, pornography is not a bad thing. There are ethical issues around it and in how you treat the people and everything else. But, I think there's a lot of reasons to be sex positive and everything else. But anyway, so they, as part of their app, they limit certain terms. Again, you couldn't use nudity, probably breasts. You couldn't use skin, but you also couldn't use things like certain gory terms. I don't think I could use the word blood as part of my image search. And so they could limit the search terms. And I think it would be a really easy thing for them to say you cannot, they just block artist names, right? I mean, anything that's from a commercial artist working today, and I'm making a living at this, you shouldn't be able to use my name to then create art that looks like mine, because it has gobbled up all of my images, and now I can spit out a new version of my own art. I think that seems like a reasonable take, but I think it's gonna be messy for a while. A lot of people having really good discussions about it all. I think it's great to explore and look at. We've discussed it a lot internally, but I don't think you're going to see us putting out products that are based on AI-based art anytime soon. So we respect the artists. We want the artists. We want to work with artists who know art. They've put a lot of time into their craft. I have a lot of respect for people who have good understanding of the fundamentals of art. Artists have really helped make us who we are. And so, we have a lot of respect around that. And none of that stuff's changing anytime soon. So.
Thanks, Bear. Yeah, I still don't know how I've been messing around with it. I just still don't know exactly how I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm like, it's cool, but I don't know. It's like, I don't know, it's weird.
I mentioned doing the podcast side project earlier on in the show, and I'm probably going to end up using some AI generated stuff for it. But I have my lines, as I was kind of suggesting, as far as where I would draw my limits as far as how I would generate stuff. I'm not generating stuff that's going to be using people's artist names and things like that. And it's all it's all for small things that are, it's a small side project. We'd probably be using it for like some Instagram images or cover photos when we put out like the podcast episodes, things like that. So, I'll be exploring it and continue to look at it. But from an MCG standpoint, it's not going to be something that's going to be invading the space and displacing artists. So.
Oh, that we could do a whole video or podcast episode on this topic.
Seriously.
Yeah, there's a lot of great artists out there that are having good discussions about this. Carla Ortiz, I think, is one to follow and see what she's talking about with it. There's an artist that I really like, and she's done some work for us before. Kirsten Zern-Gibble, who's very pro using these new tools as kind of iterative processes. She's done a lot of 3D work. She's exploring AI as part of all of these things. She does some really wonderful, fanciful stuff. And so I think she's very pro in many ways, but also pro AI in many ways, but also has a good understanding of some of the issues around it and things like that. So it's interesting, I think, to see the different points of view and where these things might go.
Yeah, that sounds. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out.
It's definitely
We got one
a
last
time.
question, Al.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a time, and I'll go into the last question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
butcher the name again.
I'm gonna butcher it. I don't care. It's from the same guy who asked our last audience questions, El Terror. But yeah, there's a good wrap up one. Does Bear have any hints for the next MCG product / campaign?
I probably should have asked ahead of time if I could do something like that. What I would say is there may, like I'd said before, there may be an announcement at the end of our Kickstarter. I think it's probably better to should that happen, to let that be kind of where that information comes from, and not steal the thunder from the marketing department. Charles's realm. He has that under control, and clearly we are working and planning on stuff. What that might be, we may let out at the end of this Kickstarter, this crowdfunding campaign, this backer kit, whatever we call it. I don't know.
And on top of that, we could also ask Monte next week.
There you go.
And Bruce actually gave a name for it. He calls it crowd backer, and everyone seems seems to like that title.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have Monte on next week, he's not beholden to anyone. He might be able to let that cat out of the bag. He's not a big cat person. He's allergic to cats, but he might let it out of the bag. So.
All right, so next week we're gonna be like, yo, Bear said you're gonna give us all the juice.
That's right. Bear promised that you're gonna give us something good.
It's happening now.
That's right.
Yeah, Monte is usually good for dropping at least one or two.
Yeah.
He drops, he drops some jewels every time he comes on. So
yeah. Yeah. If anybody's gonna do it, Monte's gonna do it, or Charles. I think both of those guys are gonna be good at, having a good sense of when to let something go. So I always have to kind of bite my tongue. As I said before, I'm an introvert, but you get me talking, I may end up saying some stupid shit, and so it's probably good that I don't drink or very rarely drink, because I would probably say a lot more stupid stuff way too often. So,
or if not, you encode it meme form.
That's right. All right.
Yeah, it's like invisible sun. You got to figure it out through the meme.
That's right.
We'll take the meme.
Just before, first of all, Bear, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on the show and chatting with us. It's always a pleasure to have you on. And please, let's not make it another 3 years.
Yeah.
Get back on.
Yep.
We would definitely like you. You bring such a unique perspective. Usually with the MCG team, we're talking about design, but you actually, you're the heart and soul of these books, because the layout, the artwork, you you're like the glue that holds that whole team together. And you know, between the art direction and the layout, and you know, we want everybody to know the great work that you're doing, because you do phenomenal work.
And that's really, you know, what Anthony's saying is like really true, because you know, we love the subject material and the, you know, all of that, but without the art, you know, it would be a whole lot less immersive.
Yeah,
All the-
yeah,
the
I hear you. I
people-
really appreciate it. You know, it's the same with me, right? You grab a book. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at it. You're not going to read it. You're going to flip through it. I mean, at least a game book. You're flipping through it. You want to see it, and so it's our job to make it exciting and enticing, and want to pull you in further. So I'm happy to hear that you guys love it. You know, and I enjoy being here with you guys. This is always fun. You know, I'm not the one who's ever going to be like, hey guys, let me back on your show. But you know, you want me on, hit me up. We'll make it happen. I'm happy to come back.
Oh, thank you so much.
We appreciate that.
And
Yeah.
we all October 19th to the 23rd, you could find Bear and the three of us at Gamehole Con. For, you know, we're gonna be there with pretty much the entire Monte Cook game staff is gonna be there as well. So if you're in Madison, Wisconsin and wanna game with us, game with the MCG team, go to Gamehole Con. It's gonna be the con to be at this year. We're really excited for that as well. And if you like us and you like what we do, join the Cypher Unlimited Discord server for all things Monte Cook games. We have the largest fan-run Discord server. We're well over 4,000 members and growing. But if Discord's not for you, join our Facebook group. It's not as big as our Discord, but we have great conversations being had there as well. If you want to support it financially in any way, give us a little donation on Ko-fi. Our videos are always free, but it helps us out with little things like Zoom calls. Or visit our online store and pick up some cool Cypher Unlimited merch like me and Dean got on. Al never wears the Cypher Unlimited merch because he's too cool for school, but it's okay. Right? Or give us a follow or subscribe here on Twitch. We'll greatly appreciate it. And last but not least, join our YouTube channel. We're 18 subs away from 1,000 there. We're really trying to get to 1,000 on YouTube. So even if you hate us, go on that channel and tell us how we freaking idiots. It doesn't matter as long as you subscribe. I'm a smile. Tell us how horrible we are. But just go over there and sub. We need you. Last but not least, we love you guys.
Yeah, and thank you again so much for coming on, Bear. It's always a delight to hear, you know, the kind of processes that go into the art of Monte Cook games, because as Anthony said, the level of art y'all provide for us it helps so much with the immersion and just getting the feel and vibe of everything y'all are putting on. It's fantastic. Yeah, but as usual, guys, from us at the CU, we will see you later.
Bye, guys.